There are nights that become legends in your own life, the kind you tell over drinks or late at night when someone asks if you've ever been truly afraid. This is mine. I was 22, fresh out of college, working at a logistics firm in Manchester that paid just enough to afford a flat share in Didsbury. Most weekends I'd take the train back to my hometown, a small market town in Cheshire called Alderley Edge. My parents still lived there, and honestly, the quiet was a welcome break from the city noise. But that Saturday in October, I wasn't going home for peace. I was going because my best friend from school, Tom, was throwing what he called a reunion party at his parents' house. They were away for the weekend, and he'd invited everyone from our old sixth form crew. I arrived around 7 in the evening. The house was already buzzing. Music, laughter, the smell of cheap beer and cheaper wine. It felt like being 18 again, except now we had jobs and responsibilities we were all eager to forget. By 11, I was pleasantly drunk. By midnight, I was losing badly at poker to a guy I barely remembered from chemistry class. And by 1 in the morning, Tom had passed out on the couch. The party was winding down, and I realized I'd missed the last train back to Manchester. Just crash here, someone suggested. But the house was packed. Every couch and spare bed claimed. I checked my phone. Uber would cost me 60 quid. I had 20 in my account until payday. So I did what any financially irresponsible 22-year-old would do. I decided to walk. It wasn't completely insane. Alderley Edge to the nearest train station in Wilmslow was only about 4 miles. I'd walked it once before, years ago, in daylight with friends. How bad could it be at night? I said my goodbyes, grabbed my jacket, and stepped out into the cold. The temperature had dropped sharply, and my breath misted in front of me. The street was silent, lined with those big detached houses that all looked the same in the dark. Red brick, neat hedges, BMWs in the driveways. I pulled up Google Maps.
The blue line showed a straightforward route, down through the residential streets, onto a footpath that cut through the woods called the Edge, then out onto the main road leading to Wilmslow. Easy. The first 15 minutes were fine. I walked quickly, hands in pockets, earbuds in. I listened to a podcast about unsolved mysteries. Ironic in hindsight. The streets were deserted but well lit. A fox darted across the road ahead of me, and I laughed at how startled I'd been. Then I reached the entrance to the woodland path. The Edge is a sandstone escarpment covered in dense forest, famous locally for its walking trails and old legends about wizards and hidden caves. In daylight, it's beautiful. At 1 in the morning, it looked like something out of a Brothers Grimm story. The path disappeared into darkness between the trees. The streetlights ended abruptly, as if even the council had decided this was someone else's problem. I hesitated. My phone showed the path would cut 20 minutes off the walk. The alternative was following the main road, which looped around and would take nearly an hour longer. I checked the time. Nearly 1:30. If I took the road route, I wouldn't reach Wilmslow until almost 3, and I wasn't even sure if there'd be a train that early on Sunday morning. I turned on my phone's flashlight and stepped onto the woodland path. The first 100 meters weren't bad. The path was wide, packed earth, and my phone's light illuminated enough to keep me from tripping on roots. The trees pressed in on both sides. Oak, beech, birch, their branches forming a canopy overhead that blocked out the stars. It was quiet. Not peaceful quiet, but the kind of silence that makes you aware of your own breathing, your own footsteps. I turned off the podcast. It felt wrong somehow, having voices in my ears when I needed to pay attention. To what? I didn't know yet. I walked for another 10 minutes. The path began to narrow, and the trees grew denser. My phone's light seemed weaker here, swallowed by the darkness. I tried to shake off the unease creeping up my spine.
This was ridiculous. I was a grown man walking through some woods in Cheshire, not wandering through a horror film. Then I heard it. A snap, sharp and distinct, like someone stepping on a branch. I stopped and turned, shining my light back the way I'd come. Nothing, just trees and shadows. Hello? My voice sounded smaller than I'd intended. No response. I told myself it was an animal. Deer, maybe. The Edge was full of wildlife. I'd probably scared it as much as it had scared me. I turned back and kept walking, faster now. Another sound. This time a rustling in the undergrowth to my left, closer. I spun toward it, light cutting through the darkness. For just a second I thought I saw movement, something pale, low to the ground. But when I focused, there was nothing there. My heart was pounding now. I picked up the pace, almost jogging. The path curved ahead, and I knew from memory that it would start descending soon, leading down toward the edge of the woods and the main road beyond. Just get through this section, I told myself. 10 more minutes and you're out. That's when my phone died. The screen went black without warning. No low battery alert, no final flicker. Just instant, total darkness. I stood frozen, my thumb jamming the power button uselessly. Nothing. The battery had been at 40% when I'd left Tom's house. It should have lasted hours. But now I was alone in the woods, in the middle of the night, with no light. I've never experienced darkness like that. In the city, there's always light. Street lamps, car headlights, the glow from windows. Even in the countryside, there's usually moonlight or starlight. But here, under the dense canopy, there was nothing. I held my hand 6 inches from my face and couldn't see it. Panic started to claw at my chest. I forced myself to breathe slowly, to think. The path. I just had to stay on the path. I could feel it under my feet, packed earth, slightly raised from the surrounding forest floor. As long as I walked carefully, I wouldn't get lost. I started moving again, shuffling forward, hands outstretched like a blind man.
My foot caught on something, a root maybe, and I stumbled, barely catching myself. From somewhere behind me, I heard footsteps. Not the uncertain, careful steps of someone navigating in darkness. These were confident, quick, getting closer. "Who's there?" I called out, trying to sound calm. The footsteps stopped. Silence again, except for my own ragged breathing. "I can hear you," I said, louder now. "This isn't funny." Still nothing. I turned and started moving faster, abandoning caution. My shin cracked against something hard, a fallen log, and I swore, stumbling forward. Pain shot up my leg, but I didn't stop. Behind me, the footsteps resumed, faster now, matching my pace. I broke into a run. It was insane, running blind through the forest, but the alternative, standing still while something hunted me in the dark, was worse. Branches whipped at my face. I felt my jacket snag and tear on something sharp. My foot plunged into a dip in the path and I nearly went down, but momentum carried me forward. The footsteps behind me didn't falter. They stayed with me, close enough that I could hear the rhythm, the weight of them, too heavy to be a fox or a deer. A person. Someone was following me. "What do you want?" I screamed, not looking back. No answer. Just those steady, relentless footsteps. My mind raced through possibilities. A mugging? But we were miles from anywhere, in the middle of the woods. Why would a mugger be out here? A psychopath. I thought of stories I'd heard, urban legends about killers who hunted in remote places. I veered off the path, crashing through undergrowth. Maybe I could lose them, hide until they passed. But the forest was impossible to navigate. Within seconds, I was tangled in brambles, thorns digging into my hands as I tried to push through. The footsteps had stopped again. I froze, lungs burning, trying to quiet my breathing. I listened. Nothing. Had I lost them? Then, from directly ahead of me, no more than 10 feet away, I heard breathing. Not my own, someone else's. Slow and steady, like they were waiting. I turned and ran back toward where I thought the path was, all pretense of stealth abandoned. My shoulder slammed into a tree trunk, and pain exploded through my arm, but I barely felt it. I had to get away, had to get out of these woods. My foot hit the path again, and I followed it downhill, gravity pulling me into a stumbling sprint. I could see slightly better now. Was that moonlight? The canopy must be thinning. Behind me, the footsteps returned. Faster, closer. They were gaining on me. The trees opened up slightly, and I burst into a small clearing. Moonlight filtered through the gap in the canopy, casting everything in silver and shadow. I spun around, and for the first time, I saw them. A figure stood at the edge of the clearing, maybe 20 meters back, half hidden by trees. They were tall, over 6 feet, and wearing something dark, a coat or cloak maybe. I couldn't make out their face. The moon was behind them, turning them into a silhouette. "Stay back," I shouted, my voice cracking. The figure didn't move, didn't speak, just stood there, watching. We stared at each other for what felt like an eternity. My mind tried to find something rational, some explanation. A late-night hiker, another drunk person taking a shortcut home. But hikers don't chase people through the woods in silence. And then the figure moved. They didn't walk or run. They glided forward, smooth and impossibly fast, closing half the distance between us in a second. I didn't think. I turned and bolted toward the far side of the clearing, where the path continued downhill. My legs burned, my lungs screamed, but adrenaline pushed me forward. The edge of the woods had to be close now. I could see lights in the distance, street lights from the main road, maybe half a mile away. Almost there. Something grabbed my jacket from behind. I jerked forward, the fabric ripping, and I tumbled to the ground hard, my palms scraping against gravel and dirt. I rolled onto my back, kicking out blindly. The figure loomed over me, still silent.
Up close, I could see more. A pale face, but the features were wrong somehow, blurred or indistinct.
Eyes that caught the moonlight like an animal's. I opened my mouth to scream. A sound ripped through the night. A car horn. Eyes that caught the moonlight like an animal's. I opened my mouth to scream. A sound ripped through the night. A car horn, blaring from somewhere nearby. The figure's head snapped toward the sound, and in that instant of distraction, I scrambled backward, found my feet, and ran. I didn't look back. The path descended steeply now, and I half ran, half slid down the slope, grabbing at tree trunks to keep from falling. My hands were bleeding, my leg throbbed where I'd hit it earlier, but I didn't care. The lights grew brighter. I could hear traffic now, the distant hum of cars on the A538. Civilization. I burst out of the tree line onto a narrow residential street that bordered the woods. Streetlights blazed overhead, glorious and mundane. A car sat parked at the curb, engine running, a teenage couple inside arguing about something. They looked up, startled, as I stumbled into the light. "Are you all right?" the driver called out, rolling down his window. I turned back toward the woods. The path I'd emerged from was dark and empty. No figure, no movement. "Yeah," I managed, my voice hoarse. "Yeah, I'm fine." They looked skeptical but didn't press. The car pulled away, leaving me alone under the streetlight. I stood there, shaking, staring at the woods. Had I imagined it? Panic in the dark, my mind conjuring threats that weren't there? But my jacket was torn, my hands were bleeding, and I could still feel where fingers, if they were fingers, had grabbed me. I pulled out my phone, hoping it had somehow revived. It hadn't, still dead. The main road was visible from here, just a few streets over. I could walk there, flag down a car, get help. But first I needed to move, because standing there, exposed under the streetlight, I felt like prey that had only temporarily escaped the hunt. I walked quickly through the residential streets, past rows of sleeping houses, their windows dark. It was nearly 2 in the morning now. The world felt abandoned. I kept glancing over my shoulder. The street behind me was always empty, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was still being watched. Twice I thought I saw movement, a shadow slipping between houses, something darting across a garden. But when I stopped and looked directly, there was nothing. "You're paranoid," I told myself. "You're out of the woods. You're safe now." Except I didn't feel safe. The main road appeared ahead, and with it the reassuring glow of a 24-hour petrol station. I could see the bright lights, the pumps, a clerk visible through the window. I started to jog toward it, relief flooding through me. And then I heard the footsteps again, behind me, echoing on the pavement. The same rhythm, the same weight. I spun around. The street was empty, but the footsteps continued. Slow, deliberate, growing louder. I backed away, eyes scanning desperately. There was no one there. The sound had no source. Terror, pure and primal, surged through me. I turned and sprinted toward the petrol station, no longer caring how I looked, no longer caring about anything except getting to that pool of light, to another human being. The automatic doors slid open and I practically fell inside. The clerk, a bored-looking man in his 50s, looked up from his phone. "You all right, mate?" I turned and looked back through the glass doors. The street outside was still and empty. The footsteps had stopped. "Yeah," I breathed. Can I use your phone?" The clerk let me use the landline behind the counter. My hands shook as I dialed my parents' number. It rang 4 times before my dad answered, voice thick with sleep. "Hello? Dad, it's me. I need you to come pick me up." "What? Where are you? Are you drunk?" "I'm at the Shell station on the A538. I'm not drunk. Please, just come get me." Something in my voice must have convinced him. He said he'd be there in 15 minutes and hung up. I handed the phone back to the clerk, who was now watching me with concern. "You sure you're all right? You look like you've seen a ghost." "I'm fine. Just had a rough night." He nodded slowly, not convinced, but didn't push. I bought a bottle of water and a chocolate bar, mostly to give my hands something to do, and sat on the floor by the window, watching the street outside. The petrol station was an island of fluorescent brightness in the dark. Nothing moved beyond its borders. My mind tried to process what had happened. Someone had chased me through the woods. That part was real. But the rest, the impossible speed, the distorted face, the sourless footsteps, my mind must have filled in the gaps, turned a bad situation into something supernatural, right? I caught my reflection in the glass. My face was scratched, dirt smeared. My jacket hung in tatters. This wasn't nothing. Something had happened.
A pair of headlights appeared in the distance, growing brighter. My dad's old Volvo pulled into the station, and I've never been so happy to see that battered blue car in my life. I stood, legs unsteady, and pushed through the doors into the night one more time. I climbed into the passenger seat, and my dad took one look at me and swore. What the hell happened? I'll explain on the way. Just drive, please. He pulled out onto the main road, heading back toward Otterly Edge. I slumped in my seat, the warmth of the car and the familiar smell of my dad's aftershave finally letting me believe I was safe. I was walking back from Tom's, I started, took the path through the edge. Someone followed me. Someone followed you? His voice was sharp. Did you see them? Did they hurt you? I saw them, sort of. They chased me through the woods, grabbed me once, but I got away. My dad's hands tightened on the steering wheel. We're calling the police. Yeah, okay. We drove in silence for a minute, passing through the empty streets. Then my dad glanced in the rearview mirror and frowned. That's odd. What? That car behind us. It's been following since we left the station. I twisted around in my seat. Behind us, maybe 30 meters back, was a dark car. I couldn't make out the model or color in the darkness. No headlights on. They don't have their lights on, I said, my mouth going dry. My dad accelerated slightly.
The car behind us matched our speed, maintaining the distance. It's probably nothing, he said, but his voice had changed. Tighter. We approached a roundabout, and my dad took the exit toward home. The dark car followed. Dad! I see it. Another turn, down a residential street. The car stayed with us. My dad made a sudden decision and turned into a cul-de-sac, pulling into someone's driveway and killing the lights. We sat in darkness, watching. The dark car rolled past the entrance to the cul-de-sac, crawling slowly, as if searching. As it passed under a streetlight, I caught a glimpse of the driver's window. A pale face, indistinct features, the same figure from the woods. My dad saw it too. I heard his sharp intake of breath. That's not possible. The car behind us matched our speed, maintaining the distance. It's probably nothing, he said, but his voice had changed. Tighter. We approached a roundabout, and my dad took the exit toward home. The dark car followed. Dad! I see it. Another turn, down a residential street. The car stayed with us. My dad made a sudden decision and turned into a cul-de-sac, pulling into someone's driveway and killing the lights. We sat in darkness, watching. The dark car rolled past the entrance to the cul-de-sac, crawling slowly, as if searching. As it passed under a streetlight, I caught a glimpse of the driver's window. A pale face, indistinct features, the same figure from the woods. My dad saw it too. I heard his sharp intake of breath. That's not possible, he whispered. The car continued past and disappeared around a corner. We sat frozen, neither of us speaking. We're going to the police station, my dad said finally. Right now. He reversed out of the driveway and took off in the opposite direction, toward the center of town, where the small police station was located. I kept watching the mirrors, but the dark car didn't reappear. The police station was closed. It was only staffed during daytime hours, but there was an intercom for emergencies. My dad pressed the button, and after a moment, a tired voice answered. Cheshire Police, what's your emergency? My dad explained quickly. Someone had chased his son through the woods and then followed us in a car. We needed to file a report. There was a pause. Then, is the individual still pursuing you? No, they're gone now. All right, can you come to the Macclesfield station in the morning? We'll take a full statement then. In the morning, what if they come back? Sir, if they return or you feel in immediate danger, call 999. But right now, without an active threat, the best we can do is have you come in during operating hours. My dad argued for another minute, but it was pointless. They weren't sending a patrol car for something that had already ended. We were told to go home, lock our doors, and come in at 9 a.m. We drove home in silence.
My mom was waiting up, worried, and her face went white when she saw the state of me. I told the story again while she cleaned my scratched hands and face. You're staying here tonight, she said firmly, and you're never walking through those woods again. I didn't argue. I lay awake in my childhood bedroom until dawn, listening to every creak of the house, watching the window, half expecting to see that pale face staring in. Morning came slowly. I must have dozed off around 5 because I woke to sunlight streaming through the curtains and my mom knocking gently on the door. We're going to the police in an hour, she said. I showered, borrowed some of my dad's clothes since mine were ruined, and tried to eat breakfast. Everything tasted like cardboard. At the Macclesfield police station, we were shown into a small interview room. A constable took my statement, nodding and making notes as I described the events in the woods and the car that had followed us. "Did you get a license plate number?" she asked. "No, it was too dark." "And you said the person grabbed you. Did they say anything? Make any demands?" "No, they didn't speak at all." She wrote that down. "And your phone died during this incident?" "Yes." "May I see it?" I handed it over. She pressed the power button, and to my shock, it turned on immediately. Full battery. I stared at it. That was completely dead last night. "Phones can be glitchy," she said, not unkindly, especially in cold weather. She asked a few more questions, then said they'd look into it, check CCTV from the petrol station, see if any other incidents had been reported in the area. But I could tell from her tone she thought I'd panicked in the dark, maybe encountered a homeless person or another drunk walker, and my fear had exaggerated everything. We left the station with a crime reference number and no real sense that anything would come of it. "At least it's on record," my dad said as we drove home. I nodded, but I couldn't shake the feeling that recording it in a police database wouldn't keep me safe from whatever I'd encountered in those woods. I went back to Manchester the next day.
My flatmates asked what happened to my jacket, and I told them I'd torn it on a fence. The scratches on my face I blamed on brambles. I didn't tell them the truth. I wasn't even sure what the truth was anymore. A week later, I got a call from the Cheshire police. They'd reviewed CCTV from the petrol station. I was visible, arriving around 2 a.m., looking distressed. My dad's car arrived shortly after, but there was no other vehicle following us. The dark car I'd described didn't appear on any of the cameras. "Are you certain about what you saw?" the constable asked. I said I was. She said they'd keep the case open, but there wasn't much else they could do without evidence or witnesses. I thanked her and hung up. No evidence, no witnesses, just my word against the night. I tried to move on, went to work, saw friends, laughed at their jokes, but something had shifted inside me. I found myself avoiding dark streets, taking taxis even for short distances. I kept my phone charged obsessively, terrified of being without light, and I never went back to Alderley Edge. A month later, unable to let it go, I started researching the Edge. I told myself I was looking for rational explanations. Maybe there had been other attacks, maybe a known offender in the area. What I found was worse. The woods had a history. Not just the famous legends about wizards and King Arthur, but darker stories, disappearances. In 1987, a university student had vanished while hiking there alone, never found. In 2003, a teenager reported being chased by a shadow figure through the trees. Police had dismissed it as teenage dramatics. There were others, vague mentions in local forums, old newspaper clippings I dug up in digital archives. A pattern of people encountering something in those woods at night. Something that followed, something that chased, but never any evidence, never any conclusions. I found one forum post from 2012 that made my blood run cold. A woman described being followed by a figure that moved wrong, that appeared in her car mirrors even after she'd driven miles away from the woods. She ended the post with, "I still see it sometimes."
I don't think it ever really stopped following me. That night, I unplugged every smart device in my flat, covered my laptop camera, closed all the curtains, because I'd started to notice things too. Shadows that moved when they shouldn't, and the feeling of being watched through windows. And twice, late at night, I'd heard footsteps in the hallway outside my flat, steady, rhythmic, stopping right outside my door. But when I looked through the peephole, there was never anyone there. It's been 3 years now since that night in October. I've moved twice since then, first to Leeds, then down to Bristol. I tell myself I moved for work opportunities, for a change of scenery, but really, I was running. I don't know what I encountered in those woods. I've stopped trying to explain it rationally, stopped trying to convince myself it was just a person, just fear, just coincidence. Some things don't have explanations that fit into police reports or logical frameworks. I've learned to live with it, the lingering unease, the hypervigilance, the sense that I'm not quite alone even when I should be. Most days are fine. I go to work, see friends, live a normal life. But sometimes, late at night, I'll catch movement in my peripheral vision, or I'll hear footsteps that don't belong to anyone. And I'll remember that clearing in the woods, the moonlight, the figure that moved too fast and looked too wrong. And I'll remember the feeling that when it grabbed my jacket, it wasn't trying to hurt me, it was marking me. I don't walk alone at night anymore. I avoid forests, parks, anywhere the darkness can gather too thickly. Some people might call that paranoid, but those people didn't see what I saw. They didn't feel what I felt. And they don't lie awake at night, wondering if the thing that chased them through the woods all those years ago is still out there, still watching, still waiting, still following.